Hello and welcome to the Global Podcast Editors. My name is Jennifer Navarrete. I am stepping in for the fabulous founder of this, Stephanie Fuccio. And each time that this happens, which is, by the way, every 2 weeks, you can find it on Substack, YouTube, and wherever you subscribe to your podcast, Stephanie asks a question that is unique to podcast editors because, yeah, we have unique challenges and unique opportunities and unique perspective when it comes to podcasting. So this week, the question is, what challenges are you finding in your podcast editing right now? And we have a couple of fabulous guests who are going to join this discussion. And I'm going to introduce Philippe. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi. First of all, thank you for having me, Jennifer, and thanks to Stephanie for the invitation. My name is Filip Krstevski. I come from North Macedonia, and I've been editing podcasts for a year now. So that puts me in the beginner category. And since I started. I made my own website. I worked on a couple of different podcasts, and I'm still now I'm working on a couple of different. And for the future, I want to start a small podcast editing business or agency, if you will. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. Good stuff. I can't wait to dive further into that. Angelina, please share your history and who you are as a podcast editor.
Hi, everybody. Just want to echo, I'm really grateful to be here, even though we're not spending time with Stephanie today. I'm happy to be spending time with both of you. So my name is Angelina. I am an elder Gen Z podcast editor. So I actually started producing podcasts straight out of college because I graduated in 2020. So that was kind of a rough time, but I quickly realized that this isn't a good time to be employed. So I wanted to kind of build my own thing from scratch. And I actually come from the music production space. I'm an independent music producer outside of this. So it was kind of an intuitive switch to go from sampling creatively and making music to working with audio and dialogue editing. So now it's been about 2 years. I have a few of my own personal clients that I service and do like full service management for, but the majority of my work comes from subcontracting through a larger agency. So yeah, just pretty much most of my day is spent actually editing, and that's what I like to do best. That's my bread and butter. So I'll probably keep it this way for a while. I'm enjoying myself.
You know, I think that's key too, is enjoying yourself, because there is a beauty and an artistry to this. So I will introduce myself as well and just say that I am a 17-year podcaster, started back in 2005, back in the very, very early days of podcasting. And to this day, I still love podcasting, even sometimes those 3 a.m. editing sessions, which can be a bear. I absolutely love the process of taking raw audio and crafting it into something beautiful that can be heard all around the world. So this what Stephanie is doing here, to me, is just a wonderful thing, because I think we a lot of times are the unsung heroes that are behind the scenes that most folks know nothing about, because they just jam those earbuds in and then they're good to go. And that is what we want as the end result. They don't need to know all of those 3 a.m. editing sessions. They don't need to know all of the filters and all of the leveling and all of the cuts that we did to make it sound beautiful. But sometimes those things are challenging. So our topic today is really about what are some of our biggest podcast editing challenges right now. And Philippe, and we can just bounce back and forth, but Philippe, I'll throw to you to kind of share some of what the challenges that you're facing.
Well, my challenge recently has been that it's not of a technical nature, but it's more, I don't know, maybe plans for the future. So as I said, I do this like for a year now, and I'm just at this cross path in meaning which way of work that I decide to do. For example, I can see 2 ways in which I can follow. The one way is the administrative podcast manager type of thing, and the other is more production type of work that I can do. So my challenge is I can't decide which one to take. So I was thinking a lot about this lately, and I think that I will take the producing stuff of producing path and get more into producing podcasts actually, and not just editing. Until now, I was only editing, so most of it was technical editing, removing mistakes and crutch words, etc., and also mixing the sound. But I'm interested in getting to more content-related editing. So knowing the structure of an interview and storytelling kind of skills, and the challenge. This is my challenge. So, but unfortunately, I can't seem to find much resources that I can learn from. I don't know if you can recommend some, but I guess, and it will take some time to become good at this. I realize that more experience into podcasting, maybe starting my own podcast where I can experiment some of the stuff that I learn eventually. So I was thinking about that. And also I want to add how to market all that stuff and how to bring everything together. So I'm a musician as well and music teacher. I'm a non-native speaker. I'm a podcast editing, and how to bring that everything together and sort of make a brand or something that will be uniquely mine. So that's basically the challenge, and I'm looking forward to solving this.
Philippe, the whole time that you're talking, like light bulbs are going off in my head the whole time.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to unpack there. So do you mind if Angelina and I kind of brainstorm with you a little bit on that?
Yeah, of course.
So Angelina, did you have light bulbs going off in your head as well when you were listening to him?
Yes, but also I found myself asking similar questions. I think the two of us might be in a similar position in terms of figuring out what our direction is, and also the branding question. That was something that I related to in terms of the musical identity and how much these two worlds overlap, if at all. I myself have kind of decided that they need to be separate for a few reasons, but that might not be your path. But in terms of like the production elements and asking yourself how you market and also know that you have the skills to provide, that's also something that I have questions about and would like to hear some of Jennifer's light bulbs.
Yeah.
All right. We're taking a time out. Light bulb moment time. Okay. So the path that you all are on is exactly the right path. And Philippe, you mentioned that you thought maybe you should start your own podcast to begin to understand the process from an actual user perspective or a podcaster perspective. And I'm like, yes, please do that, because it informs you in so many ways what the struggle is as the podcaster. As editors, we have our own challenges and our own successes and our own things that happen. But when you're the podcaster, it is very different. And being able to kind of put one hat on as the editor, but the other hat on as the podcaster, and then the third hat as the producer. And I work in all of those realms. So for me, when Philippe, you're talking about you want to shift a little bit more into production, but how do you do that? Where's the 1, 2, 3, and who are the people that you can learn from? I will say that talking about what you're doing, like you're doing here, is a great start. What I like to do is I like to build in public and I like to experiment in public. And in that way, folks watch me stumble along, and it's not me who's stumbling, it's the experiment that's stumbling and me stumbling with the experiment because I'm trying to figure it out. But in that process of experimentation and open experimentation, which is kind of a vulnerable thing, you learn, but people also learn you. And they get a sense of you being this champion for these things. So yes, start your own podcast. I highly recommend it. You'll learn a lot. But as far as the production side, as you're developing your own podcast, start putting your pad to pen of like, how would I do this for a client? And you kind of have to be the creator and the analytical person to your own process, which is kind of interesting. That's the reason why anytime that we do a work, right, when we edit something and we think it's done, typically we'll walk away for a bit to give our brain and our ears a rest before we come back. But doing those kinds of things and sharing what you're doing and developing that out in public is a great way. And I'd be happy to mentor you all in that, because I just think it's so powerful to be that producer and to be that guide to podcasts. Because that's what I do. I mean, people bring me in and they're like, I want to start a podcast and I have this idea, but an idea to an actual podcast out in the wild, we know, is totally different. So yeah, I love that you guys are thinking that way, because people need more folks like us to guide them. They really do.
Of course, I mean, it will be a good experience to have for my future clients, and also for myself. Maybe the podcast will be success, and I don't know. I wanted to tell that the thing that encouraged me to think this way, recently with the client, I started to have this kind of responsibilities where she let me sort of decide what should stay in the episode and what should be thrown out. I mean, content related, and I understood that I have some potential in this area, and I just need to explore it more. So yeah, but
Well, you've developed a level of trust there. When a client trusts you like that, that is huge. And that really speaks volumes about you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, thank you. But she also had, like, of course, her own demands, but most of the decisions were mine. So that's when I realized that I can do this. So the other thing is, as you said, it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there. So I maybe will struggle with, that part of the deal, because I don't know, maybe like an introvert type, and also the language my English is not so well, and maybe I was thinking even to start a podcast in my own language. I mean, this way is kind of very, very limited, because North Macedonia has only 2 million citizens, and the audience for podcasts is very small. But
that's a great proving ground, though. It's a great testing ground and a great proving ground, because it's not about numbers. I mean, yes, we all want numbers. Our clients want numbers. They want thousands and millions of listeners. But the reality is, it's about impact. And for you, if you're doing it in your native language, number one, you're more comfortable there. Number two, you're more likely to get the lessons learned, because you're not having that hurdle of having to translate into a language that it's a process. Yes. I would highly recommend starting there, just to get the lay of the land, just to understand the process. And even if your podcast in your native language has a small audience, you could be having a big impact. And that big impact doesn't have to be thousands of people. It could be 5 people. It could be one person. And it's well worth doing it, because of the fact that you're also using it as your own proving ground.
Absolutely. And also, it will bring more pleasure into my work, because that way I will have clients with podcasts on subjects that I'm interested in, and that I have at least some basic knowledge, and that will be a good thing, because I can learn something, like researching the subjects and topics. And yeah,
I'm excited for you, Philippe. I really am. I cannot wait so I hope that you'll report back to us that you've launched your podcast. And even though it's not going to be something I can necessarily understand, I'm going to be cheering you on, and I will be your Texas subscriber just to support what you're doing, because I'm a fan of this direction that you're going. Angelina, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, now you're going to convince me to start a podcast as well. I mean, I think it makes total sense, because something that I struggle with, especially now kind of working with some new podcasters, is really just like the language and the coaching element, and like how we bring together these two worlds, me coming from a very technical background and just like teaching them the basics. And I have always felt that it's kind of been a weakness that I don't have my own podcast. But then there's also the issue of time management and just how you pack in all of these like high level creative projects, as well as just getting the job done for clients and, getting your invoices paid.
Which is critical for sure. Oh, so I will say, here's the way that I look at stuff like this. If you're into experimentation and really just for the learning aspect of it, I created something a long time ago called National Podcast Post Month. And it's something that happens every November. And it's an opportunity for new podcasters to fail fast, get good, experiment. And then for veteran podcasters, seasoned podcasters, to experiment with something new in a safe space where it's not like, if a lot of times when you've been in the business for a while, if you want to be experimental, folks are like, what are they doing over there? What's going on? And that feels a little intimidating. It shouldn't, but it does. So having something where you can challenge yourself in a safe community space where everyone else is challenging themselves is a really nice way to kind of, again, fail fast, get good. But so what I tell folks is like, think about the 4 levels of podcasting, right? Level 1 being mobile plus apps. It could just be mobile plus apps. It doesn't have to be all crazy and given time constraints, because as editors, our time is very precious. We get paid for all of the things that we do, probably more like doctors and lawyers, because everything is timed, and that's how we get paid. So I can understand not wanting to have a big commitment like that, but I say start small, start mobile plus apps, just to kind of get your chops in and get a sense of it and get going with it in order, your storytelling. And then how do you work with clients who are leaning on you? Now, being an editor is very different than being a producer, very different than being a podcaster, yet they all have an ebb and flow within each other. So it doesn't mean if you're an editor that you have to be a podcaster, and it doesn't mean if you're a podcaster that you have to edit. It doesn't mean if you're a producer you have to do those two things. Sometimes they ebb and flow together, but if you have a leaning towards it, experiment with it. And you don't have to tell everybody, like, you don't have to make a big announcement, I'm launching a podcast world. You could just tell your friends and your family and just do it for the experimentation aspect of it.
But I did want to add something that I really appreciated that you said earlier about bringing more pleasure into your work because you feel so much more connected with the content. And as someone who subcontracts for most of my revenue, I often am missing that sense of connection with the work because the content isn't necessarily what I would have chosen for myself. And I know, Jennifer, you're really into the crypto space, and I happen to work on a lot of that content, but it's definitely not my bread and butter. And I know more about the space now than I thought I ever would, just because I'm just bombarded with so much content. But I know where my true passions lie, and that's more on the creative end of things and the social justice end of things, which unfortunately those podcasts tend to have a much smaller budget. So that's a whole other problem. But my point in saying that was, yeah, especially if you're creating that sense of trust with your client and they're going to have a peace of mind when they give their work to you in order to let you content edit and shave down sections. And they're not going to feel the need to micromanage you. I think that's a really special relationship. And I think it's just going to bring pleasure to you as the producer, as well as relief to the client, because so much less is on their plate now because they trust you to make those high level judgment calls, almost as like a writer would. It's a little bit more, I guess like cerebral of an activity. And that's really important.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I mean, the literal translation for editor in Macedonian is, when you say editor in Macedonian, it means that you're like responsible for the content of something. So I always saw myself as that kind of editor, that will make such decisions and not just making sure that the podcast sounds nice and people more intelligent that they are. But yeah.
That was good. I'm so glad. So your podcast editing challenge right now, Philippe, just took us off on a on a great discussion. I loved it. So Angelina, what's your current podcast editing challenge?
Yeah, I was having trouble narrowing it down because a lot of mine does overlap with Philippe's. in terms of direction. Where I sit right now, most of my revenue, as I said, comes from subcontracting, and I am inundated with financial content and stock market content and crypto content, which I don't not like, but it doesn't light a fire the way that some types of content do. But it also comes with a lot of perks. I really appreciate kind of just being able to sit down in a day and edit. And I'm not on Zoom all that often because I'm not managing like an entire roster of clients who are, you know, they all have different services. They all are at like different levels in their like knowledge. It's more of a, you know, drop off the files type of relationship with my he's still a client, but he has his own business. So it's kind of like this, like my bills are getting paid. I feel like economically comfortable. I'm eating. It's nice. But then there's just this like deeper yearning for like a bit more purpose in my work. And I think it's hard, especially in a really tumultuous, like global era that we're living through. There's some relief in knowing that I like have steady work every single day and it doesn't require a ton from me like energetically. It's just something that I can sit down and almost meditate into, and then I get it done and I get an invoice and it's beautiful. So I guess I'm just wondering, when is the appropriate time to really start like transitioning into more of an agency type model and working in a more creative and, you know, producing sense, more of a production relationship, or at least management relationship with clients who run shows that are more aligned with my values and just what my passions are in life, versus kind of the comfort and it's a little bit easier, I think, what I'm doing right now. I feel like that was really long-winded, but
no, but that's so good though, because I have done agency work, so I know exactly what you're talking about. There is a real beauty to agency work, because agency work, you don't have to go and get the client. They are your client and they bring all their clients to you, and it's actually pretty nice financially. So I know exactly what you're talking about. So for me, I kind of went through a stage where that was, you know, paying really well, and I thought, should I just start marketing to agencies? Should my company be the place that agencies send their podcasts to? Because I had subcontractors of my own that I could bring into the fold if I needed to, if work got really busy. And I wound up working with 2 agencies at one time, and that was very busy and very good, but it wasn't, as you said, it wasn't satisfying my own personal creative flow or vibe or zen that I wanted. And I wound up doing less agency work for various reasons. Some of the stakeholders changed jobs, some different things happened, and it actually, once that kind of filtered away, I wasn't in a big rush to bring it back because of exactly what you're talking about. But not to say that if those things hadn't happened, I still wouldn't be doing it. I probably would. It's good money, and like you said, they bring the projects to you. What I will say,
nice, honestly.
it is. It's great. So what I will say though, the way that they brought me in, which sounds a little bit different than the way you brought me in, is they did bring me in as the producer. So I was there in the studio with the clients recording, and I brought my team to come and do the recordings. And so then I was kind of doing both sides and being there to tell them, you may not want to do that, and here's why, and here's what we have to consider.
I would love that. So I would love that. That would be a step up.
Yeah, it is. So here's some things to consider, is to let the people that you're working with know that that's also a service that you offer. You could say, you know, I know that this is where we work and it's great, but did you know that I also do this? And maybe you want to do a test with one of your new clients or your smaller clients to get a sense of what that working relationship could be. Here's my rates. Here's how that works. It actually makes the editing process better because I'm in the studio recording with you, or online, or wherever, you know, virtually there, to guide everything so that it minimizes all of the other pieces. So just a thought.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because the man whose business I'm subcontracting for, like, I have asked him, like, if I could just sit in on virtual recording sessions, and I should follow up on that because it's been like 2 months. But he seemed very willing to kind of just take me under his wing and walk me through the process. Like, I feel like I already know how that works, but it would just be nice to have somebody there to point out, like, oh, these are the mistakes that usually happen. This is how we like really step by step explain these things to clients, because you always have to find the most like elementary way to explain things.
Well, yeah, because podcasting has its
course.
own terminology and technology, and they don't care. They just want to speak their mission, share their mission and
Right.
their message, and that's what we as editors and producers are there to help them do.
Right.
Yeah, but what I saw in this past year is a lot of the podcast hosts are looking for ways to make the podcast bigger, like in terms of marketing and all sort of other stuff. But they never, and they are very confident that their content is good. Sometimes the content can be really bad, no matter how well it's edited, and maybe it sounds very good, but it's actually boring. And someone should for example, I want to work on that type of projects where I can tell someone that things needed to be changed. I mean, and to own that kind of skills and knowledge, to be confident to tell someone that you should stop doing this and maybe change into this and that. And yeah.
That
Ooh,
is very important.
Oh my
Because-
gosh. Go.
Because, yeah, I have, especially this month, I don't know what it is about this month, but the episodes that I've been getting where my role is just to edit, I have no contact with any of these hosts. I'm sitting there thinking, who listens to this entire thing?
Yeah.
I would never name any names, but there have been some shows where I'm just like, I don't know how people sit through this. It's like 2 hours of material, and every single speaker is just having a really rough time getting their ideas out there. And I get that that's what I'm being paid to make better, but there's only so much I can do as an editor, cutting down on content that at its base really needs to be revised.
Actually, while I was working on, I am usually working on podcasts that are fairly new. So on a couple of them, I predicted they're going to fail, and I saw it like 2 or 3 months before the actual pod fading, and I just thought to myself, this podcast is not going to succeed because it's not interesting. The content is not going to capture the attention of the audience, because there is so much happening right now. I mean, people can turn to YouTube and I don't know, all sort of different content, and
it's fast paced too.
And it's
our attention spans are getting shorter.
That's exactly what I meant. So you need to be much more, to stand out more from the crowd. And also I saw a couple of different podcasts that are trying to do what other people are already doing, and I think that you need to find your own I mean, no matter how cliche it sounds, but I think that's true. You just need to be yourself and try to make a podcast that really reflects you and your opinion and your values.
I'll throw something in there because you're right. A lot of times podcasters, they're like hot, they're like, woo, we're here, we're doing all these things, and they're in a frenzy, but they don't have staying power. And so a lot of that I feel has to do with whoever they're working with setting the expectations, because we know that podcasting is a slow burn. It is a long tail proposition. You don't release episode 1 and you're, raking in the bucks or making the contacts or making an impact. It's something that you have to do over time, but you have to do it consistently over time. And I think that's one of the biggest keys as someone who's a producer when I'm working with clients, is setting that expectation and helping them understand that this is something that's going to pay off if they're consistent with it. And of course, if it meets their needs. And one of the keys there is always knowing what their KPI is, what's their key performance indicator, what equals success to them. And that then we always measure everything that we're doing against it. Are we moving closer to that? Or does that need to change because of new information or the way that things are going? Or does it need to fade? Is it something that it should be just a one-off? And as a producer, one of the things I do is I have to do that, what they call like the quote, come to Jesus talk with them, the reality check, that we may want to just launch as a one-off series and do evergreen content, because they may decide after 6, 8, 10 episodes are like, I absolutely hate this. And yet they announced to the world they were doing this podcast. And, you think from now until forever. And sometimes that gives them permission to find out if they like it or not. And yet if they decide they don't, it's a standalone series that's evergreen content. And it doesn't reflect poorly on the fact that they, in essence, pod faded because they were putting it out there as a standalone series and not a podcast, an ongoing podcast. So some of those things could make a difference to those folks that are pod fading, giving themselves permission to test it out and try it out, but in something that can help them regardless. And those are the things that as an editor, you don't have a choice in, because that's not your role, but it is a very helpful role to have because it makes everything else much easier. And I think it also helps the clients. The podcasters have a better sense of what to expect because they're going into this, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and with high expectations. And all those dreams that they have for it could happen, but it will happen over time. So that's you both make a really great point as to what you're seeing and what could make things better. But that's definitely on the production side. So if we swing back to the editing side, what are things that we can do as editors? Because those are pain points. Those are real pain points that you're talking about. What can we do maybe to work with? So you're, Angelina, you're working with an agency. And so are you, Philippe.
I also have a couple clients. It fluctuates between 3 and 4. They're always taking breaks. It's less consistent, and that's kind of why I need to stick with the agency client. But for them, I also do some more creative and management type of work with them. So I do have space to experiment with the services that I'm providing with people who do trust me to take on that role. But it's maybe 25% of my workload comes from those
that's
people.
So good. I mean, Philippe, you could start off with one, and get yourself going.
Yes. In fact, the thing that I wanted to say is I also work for an agency, and I have a couple of clients on my own. And I think that with the clients on my own, I can create this relationship where I can gain the trust and slowly giving them, advice and tips on what needs to be done, just in my opinion. And I've done this in the past, not so much, but I'm not afraid to let them know that what I think. And but yes.
But you will sugarcoat it, won't you, Philippe?
Yes, I will.
I was going to say, I feel like that's something I need to work on, because I, person to person, love the clients that I do work with, outside of the agency. And I know I need to get a little bit better at boundary setting and enforcing some contractual things that we agreed upon.
Right, scope of work.
As well as just knowing how to give criticism in a way that is supportive to them, as well as firm in my knowledge and what my expertise is in. And I think it's hard because then there's always this doubt. I'm like, is this something I am qualified to insist or criticize in a healthy way? Or am I wrong? I don't know. I think it just comes from experience and, working on a variety of shows and a variety of podcast types in more of that role. But I think I'm always questioning my, what right do I have to give this feedback, even if they've made it clear that they want my feedback. I think, I could work on my communication.
That's a pain point right there as an editor, because what are your boundaries with the agency, with the client? And even when they're inviting you in, you can't just be all rough and tumble and say, this sucks.
Of
You know,
course not.
but I mean, you want to, right? Sometimes you're like, oh God, please no, my ears are bleeding. But yeah, there is definitely nuances to that. And it really, I think some of the things are for examples, to give examples of like, when you did this in this episode, in this
Yes.
section, that was really powerful. And what I feel is missing here, because I'll tell you that when I'm recording clients and they're not bringing their A game, like they're monotone and they're whatever, I'm like, I stop them. I'm like, nope. Where's the energy? Go get some. Do you have a piece of chocolate? Something, because it
Yeah.
ain't here. And then
Yeah.
finally they're like, okay. And then they start going. And then I actually give them examples. Like I'll repeat what they said, but I'll give inflection and I'll give energy and I'll give these things. And then it kind of gets them going. And that's that. And I tell them, I go, look, this is the tough love part where you haven't, done an episode in X amount of time, or I'm excited about this topic and I'm your listener. And then you're giving me monotone and you're not excited about this. Why should I be excited about this? So there's a way to do it where they understand where you're coming from. Where I could have just said, you sound terrible, but I gave an example. I gave them some tips and some suggestions, and then gave them the story that even though right now we're sitting they're sitting in their studio or their office, and I'm sitting in my studio, and we're recording this online, and it's just the two of us. It's not just the two of us. There's an entire world out there waiting, clamoring for this.
Yeah.
And we need to deliver on that expectation for the people who are going to be jamming those earbuds in and going. So I think telling that kind of story where you're sweeping them away with it softens the fact that they sound monotone. And I think storytelling and examples and putting them in the listener's seat helps with that. And that may be something you can give a try.
So I guess that's an advantage for being there live with your clients. And can I ask, Jennifer, like, what is your service model? Like, you are a live producer and you sit there and you motivate as well as being the technical support for them.
Yeah, I do the whole process.
I assume you coach. You sound like a coach.
Yeah, I'm from the very beginning, from somebody referring me. Pretty much all my work is referral. Somebody refers me and I have the discovery call with them and I hear what they want to do. I give them examples, run them through the whole gamut of the different levels of podcasting, of how we could work together and kind of work through the type of podcast that they want. Do they want to do a micro podcast nugget, podcast commuter, podcast long form? Do they want to go live? Do they want to do co-host? Do they want to do interview? Do they want to do a solo show? So work through the whole gamut. And then once we decide what that is, we have it on a mind map and a document that we're going to work towards. And then we start meeting weekly and to develop all of the assets, because you've got to do album art, you got to do intro and outro music, and is there going to be segments, all the little nuts and bolts that go into making the show their show, because every show is different, even though a lot of it has parallels, but it is unique to them. And then we schedule the guests, and what's the process for that? What's the process for scheduling guests? Is it a Calendly link? Is it, a Zoom? Is it IPDTL? Is it StreamYard? What is it? So we go through all of those pieces, and I'm holding their hand and walking with them the entire way. So by the time we get to the point where we're actually recording and doing the post-production and listening for edits, there's a huge trust factor there, obviously, because I've guided them along the way. But it's a fun process. I love going from startup, from them talking to me, telling me about their amazing idea, to us actually releasing out into the wild and them getting feedback and the listener stats and marketing and all that stuff, and hearing that they may be doing a podcast here in Texas, but that people in France and Germany are listening to it. And it's like, how cool is that? It's so much fun.
Yes.
And that way they don't develop bad habits before you come in the picture, and you have to kind of like help them unlearn some things. I have my first launch client in September, so I'm like also kind of preparing for that mentally. So thank you for that.
I have a question for Jennifer. Do you accept every podcast idea, or sometimes you refuse something that you think that is bad? You're right.
Yeah, you have to. So for me, I think that it has to be something that aligns well, that is interesting to me.
Okay.
And if it's not, then it's a pain point. And some of that agency work, as Angelina was saying, it's just random, right? You're just coming in to do the show, and it's kind of interesting, but it isn't something I would have gone, I'm going to go go edit a podcast about specialty insurance. Yes, no, but that was the job that came from the agency.
Had that.
Right. And so you learn, it's fine. But if it's just me, not agency wise, I wouldn't have taken that project. I would have given it to someone else who does like stuff like that, more dry type of content. Now, it was fun. I enjoyed walking them through the process, but again, I was in the production role and not just the editing role in that. And that's why there's the pleasure part of the creativeness of that production and helping them develop the show and working with the talent and working with the client and working with the agency. That's fun for me. So even if it was a boring topic per se, because I had the fun part of it, it was great.
Yeah.
Well, so let's go back to the pain points. We've kind of talked about that, and I feel like we've come up with a lot of ideas and solutions. But for our viewers and our listeners out there, if they are facing these same pain points, what's your tip for someone? Your tip where you're like, here's what I could do, because maybe these are starter editors or even veteran editors, and maybe they're like, I'd like to branch out, or I'm really happy doing this. And Angelina, you're really doing super well in agency work. I know that there are podcast editors that it would be the cat's meow to be in the position that you're in. So let's start with you. If somebody is wanting to get into the position that you're in and, live that sweet agency, big paycheck life, because I know what it's like. It's nice. It's steady and it's a great income. A little boring sometimes, but it is good. What are some tips you have for those folks as editors to kind of be in that hot seat or that cat seat?
Well, I got my agency role through the Podcast Editors Club on Facebook. There's a lot of good job opportunities that roll through there. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And I feel like the reason I got it was almost luck, to be honest, because I think I was asking for the rate that he was going to pay. And I feel like that's why I got like a follow-up. It's just it happened to be in alignment at the time. But I always try to stress to all of my clients that I am meant to provide them peace of mind. That's kind of like my selling point or whatever. It's like, I want you to feel as though you don't have to worry about this once you get it over to me. And I think I'm a very good subcontractor I quick with my deadlines, and I know that I'm helpful to him. So I think just really being that source of relief for them, because they have a million other things that they're thinking about. Like I see how many shows are on his roster, and I can't even imagine the level of, tasks, just all the tasks that he has on a daily basis. So it brings me joy to be able to, without a doubt, be able to take that off of his plate and know that he's not going to have to double check my work. So I guess, yeah, just be good at what you do. I don't know.
That's awesome. That's great. Because now that you have proven agency work, it's easy for you to go to other agencies and have examples of your work and expand your business if you want to do that, because agency work is good money. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, but you just can't really choose what the rate is. You really have to work within their business model. And yeah, just assess whether or not that's a right fit, because no matter how I slice it, I'm getting paid for my time, and it's not really easy to scale that unless I start to replace that work with, higher level management clients where I can demand a higher rate. So, there's pros and cons to this lifestyle. I think I'm going to stay here for a while because I really appreciate the comfort that it's brought. But we can all transition and just widen our skill set, all of us. So
fantastic. And what about you, Philippe?
Well, I will advise someone that wants to branch out to think what he or she enjoys doing. If you're enjoying more the management type of work, scheduling and all the other administrative guest management and all sort of other services, maybe you can look into that pathway. And if you're more like me with more technical and creative type of work, like you should look into producing podcasts, maybe video editing, and you just need to realize what you want to do. So just that's a process that I haven't done myself yet. I am still thinking through, and it's my challenge. But you need to balance. Also, you need to balance what's your life position. Do you need the money that much, or you can afford to experiment a little bit. So in my case, I'm a music teacher and my job is stable and I can experiment and take certain risks that maybe other people can't do. So assess your situation, and if you're more reliable on your podcast editing income, then be more conservative with your approach. And if you have something else that you're depending on and you're doing this just as a side hustle, you can take more risks and experiment with things a little bit more. So
That's great. I love that. Good advice on both counts. So Philippe, where can folks go to get connected with you? Because they've heard you here, they've seen you here, and they're like, I got to get
yes.
to know that guy. So where can they go to find more of you?
Well, they can find me on my website, fixingyourpodcast.com, and also
Oh man, that is a great domain.
Yeah.
Kudos.
How'd you grab that one up?
That is amazing.
You were quick.
Thank you. And also on Instagram, Fixing Your Podcast. It's
Man, you take the cake. I love that. What a great name.
Thank you.
Angelina.
So my website is definitely a little bit outdated, needs to be reconstructed a little bit, but it's theIntentionalEdit.com.
Oh, that's good too.
Yeah,
Most of
that's
my social media energy is kind of reserved for my music production. So if you have any interest in music, it's underscore MOSHUN, because my artist name is Motion. But that has nothing to do with you're not going to find podcast content on there. It's a pretty separate, compartmentalized brand. Yeah, it's really hard to make space for everything. Most of my energy in podcasting is just to do my work for my clients.
Do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. That's great stuff. Well, folks, we are going to wrap up another Global Podcast Editors. And I want to thank Philippe and Angelina for joining me. And of course, hat tip to Stephanie for allowing me to step into her shoes. They're comfy, Steph. I don't know how I feel, or maybe step into the seat. It's very comfy here. But I want to encourage you all, if you are listening, watching, subscribe to the Substack newsletters, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and of course, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm going to close out. I wish you well. And Steph will be back in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.